So I know a lot of you have been sitting on the edge of your seat, waiting for my top 10 list of 2021. And I realize that just about everyone else has put out their top 10 list already, but you know what? It's the end of the year. I've been preparing for this list for like a month and a half. We're gonna do it anyway. And actually, the good news, or I guess bad news, depending on how you look at it, is that my list is totally opinion-based. I based it on my own personal opinions, the shoes that I like the best, and also the shoes that I felt like had the most impact on sneaker culture this year. In fact, your opinion might vary completely from my opinion, so your list might look completely different than my list, but that's totally fine because that's your opinion. And while honestly a lot of the shoes on my list have made other people's lists, there are some standouts that are a little bit different, and it should make for a fun video, hopefully. Oh, and of course I should probably run the intro. What's up everybody? I'm Seth Fowler, and this is my top 10 list of the best sneaker releases of 2021. So I guess I should probably preface this list by saying that there were a lot of really great sneaker releases this year. In fact, I feel like there's probably almost 100 sneakers that could have made this list realistically and people wouldn't bat an eye. And that's actually the reason why I'm not doing an honorable mentions section of this list, because I feel like almost all of those shoes could have been honorable mentions, and most of them didn't make this list by just a hair. So if I had done a full honorable mentions section, it would have been like an hour-long video, and you guys don't want to see that. So instead, we're just diving right into the top 10. And of course, because this list is technically opinion-based, I would love to know your opinions on this list and whether you feel like I left any shoes out or whether you felt like maybe a shoe was in the wrong place on the list. So if you guys have any thoughts, make sure to leave those thoughts in the comment section down below. And also, if you feel like grabbing any of the shoes on the list, I've made sure to leave an affiliate link to GOAT in the description below if you guys want to check the resale prices or just maybe grab some of the shoes for yourself. But with all of that being said, let's get right into the top releases of 2021. At number 10 is the Nike GoFly Yeezy. So this shoe is honestly crazy. It's one of the very first, if not the first, hands-free shoe that isn't really a slip-on. So this shoe has been specifically designed by Nike for people with disabilities who can't tie their own shoes or put their own shoes on by themselves. And the way that the shoe works is honestly kind of groundbreaking. It's essentially a shoe that's been split in half and it's attached by a living hinge, and then the entire shoe is surrounded by what is essentially a large rubber band. And because of that, you can step on the back of the shoe, which essentially slides the shoe open. You then slide your foot in and then step down in the shoe, and it closes itself and locks your foot into place. It's such a cool concept. I absolutely love it. I had a pair for myself for a little bit for a review, and it worked flawlessly. And while the engineering of this shoe is absolutely insane, and the fact that Nike is producing this and selling the shoe is amazing, the problem was the release of this shoe. And honestly, if it wasn't for the release, this shoe probably would be higher up on the list. So as I said, the idea behind the design of this shoe was for people with disabilities who couldn't put on shoes for themselves. This gave them the opportunity to put on shoes for themselves without needing the aid of somebody else, and in that way, the shoe is incredible. The problem was people with disabilities were having a very difficult time, if not an impossible time, trying to grab a pair of these. And I think there were a lot of reasons for that, but the main reason seems to be that Nike just straight up didn't make enough pairs. And I understand that there's probably manufacturing constraints because it's a completely new design, it's something brand new. I'm sure they have to get specialized materials, and I'm sure with everything going on in the world right now, there was a lot of manufacturing problems and shipping issues and things like that. But the problem was that because the shoe was so limited, the release of this shoe was absolutely botched. In fact, when the shoe first released, or the first couple times it released, resellers and bots completely bought up almost the entire stock and ended up reselling these shoes for insane prices. And from what I can remember, the initial retail price of this shoe was $120, but on the resale market, you could find pairs almost at $600. And even now at the end of the year, these shoes are still reselling for like $240, which is double retail. So it's already difficult for people who are disabled to grab this shoe as is. But then of course, if you do want to grab a pair of these, now you have to pay resale. So it's a whole nother hurdle. It was just a complete mess, and I kind of wish, rather than dropping these shoes in such limited quantities, they had just waited until they had a huge stock of them and they could just flood the market so that there was really no resale value there, so the people who actually needed these shoes could grab them. And while I don't think there's anything wrong with owning a pair of these if you're not disabled, say for example, you're coming in with a bunch of groceries and you want to take your shoes off before you go inside the house, it's super easy by just kicking them off while your hands are full. I do think that it should have been more of a priority by Nike to try and make sure the people who had disabilities got these shoes first, and then the rest of us could get pairs afterwards. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case, and now it just looks like we're gonna have to wait for Nike to release more pairs of these before people who actually need them can get them. And honestly, if it wasn't for the botched release of this shoe would have been much higher up on the list because it fulfills a pretty important need for a lot of people with disabilities, and two, it's an insane new technology that I absolutely love, love. I think the designers at Nike are brilliant with this one. I think it's an awesome sneaker, and this really could be the direction that footwear is going in the future. I mean, Crocs have boomed in popularity. You've got Yeezy foam runners, which are essentially slip-on sneakers. I think footwear is really going in the direction of ease of use versus getting more difficult to wear. So because of that, I wouldn't be surprised if we see this sort of lacing technology or securing technology a lot more in the future. Moving on to number 9, we've got the ALD New Balance 550 in natural green. So while the New Balance 550 silhouette was brought back last year, and this isn't the first release of this shoe, this colorway is definitely the colorway that made this shoe as popular as it is. I would argue that if you ask any sneakerhead what colorway they think of when they think of the New Balance 550, they would think of this colorway. For some reason, this colorway, the natural green colorway, which comes in primarily white with an aged midsole and some forest green hits, and then of course an aged yellow New Balance logo right there in the midfoot, is the most popular colorway of all the 550s. And I think that's just because it's such a wearable colorway on such a wearable silhouette. So to give you all a little bit of background on the New Balance 550, this silhouette first released back in the 80s as a New Balance basketball silhouette. And as time went on, the 550s went out of style and New Balance stopped producing them. Then in 2020, Teddy Santis, the founder of ALD, decided to revive this silhouette with an ALD New Balance collaboration. And I'm so glad he did, because the 550 is one of my favorite silhouettes of the entire year. I know it's not a brand new silhouette, but I've been wearing this shoe so much. It's one of my most worn sneakers of 2021. I have like 4 different colorways of the 550s, and I absolutely love them. And I've got to say, the ALD collaborations on the 550s are excellent. Every single one of the colorways are fire, and even though there's now just standard 550s dropping without any collaborations, the ALDs are still the cream of the crop. And again, the ALD 550 Natural Green is the most popular and most iconic of the bunch, and for that reason, it's number 9 on the list. Coming in at number 8 is the Joe Freshgoods New Balance 990 V3 Outside Clothes. I think it's fair to say that Joe Freshgoods, the Chicago-based designer, has become one of New Balance's most prominent collaborators. In fact, last year's Joe Freshgoods collaboration on the 992s is one of the most popular New Balance collaborations of all time, and consequently, it's also one of the highest valued collaborations. And this year, Joe Freshgoods is back at it again on a different silhouette, the 990 V3s, this time around in a blue and tan colorway. Now, as the name of the collaboration would suggest, outside clothes, this shoe is inspired by the look of winter outside clothing. And I've got to say that the color palette that Joe chose in this collaboration is absolutely insane. I love the bright blues, I love the little hits of green, I think they're awesome, and then of course the tan is such a solid base. It's all around a very wearable and very bright and exciting looking sneaker. And for me, the 990 V3 is my favorite 990 silhouette. He picked a great shoe to collaborate on. It's insanely comfortable, it looks awesome, and it just works so well with this colorway. And while I don't feel like Joe Freshgoods has surpassed his Anatomy of a Heart 992s from last year, I do feel like he's done a great job of creating an excellent follow-up. Coming in at number 7 is the OffWhite Air Jordan 2 Low. So I've talked a bunch about the impact that Virgil Abloh has had on not only sneaker culture and design culture, but also on my own personal life. And I've got to say that we really lost one of the most iconic designers and one of the most influential designers of the last decade. Rest in peace to Virgil Abloh, and my prayers go out to his family and friends. I know that must have been a devastating loss, and I'm so sorry. And I do have to say that the OffWhite Air Jordan 2, being his last release, makes this shoe even more special. So with the OffWhite Air Jordan 2, Virgil Abloh is trying something completely different than any of his other Off-White Nike releases. In fact, rather than going for his standard sort of prototype aesthetic, he decided to go for a shoe that was really meant to honor Michael Jordan and open the vault for normal people to be able to own a pair of shoes that looks just like a pair of shoes that Michael Jordan wore on court. And what's amazing about this shoe is the attention to detail. The fact that Virgil decided to make the midsole of the sneaker look like it was a cracked, aged midsole. It's incredible. And the way that he did it by creating a resin midsole that you can actually see into and it genuinely looks like it's cracked is absolutely amazing and is by far my favorite part of this shoe. Of course, this shoe still does feature some other off-white hits like the exposed foam around the top of the ankle opening, the zip tie, and of course the off-white text on the medial side. But honestly, I feel like the shoe was designed to be more of an art piece than to be a shoe that's actually worn. And it's such an interesting take on a sneaker collaboration. It's really different than anything else that Virgil has done, and for that reason, I really love it. While it's not a shoe that I could see myself wearing that often because the resin is not that comfortable underfoot, it's an awesome sneaker and it's one that I'm so happy to have in my collection. Following that up at number 6, we've got the Adidas YEEZY 450 in Cloud White. So 2021 has been an absolutely insane year for Yeezy releases. In fact, I think this year we've gotten more brand new Yeezy silhouettes than any year before. And the 450 is by far one of the most interesting and also one of the craziest looking Yeezy sneakers that's released not only this year, but ever. So the Yeezy 450 has actually been teased for a long time. In fact, I think we first saw this shoe back in maybe as early as 2019. This shoe is sort of a mashup between between a prime knit sneaker like a Yeezy 350 and a foam sneaker like the Yeezy Foam Runner. And what's most interesting about this shoe is the way that the midsole sort of wraps up onto the upper of the shoe and creates almost like a midfoot cage out of the midsole. It's kind of a crazy look. I know this shoe has been compared to dumplings in memes online, and I totally understand that, and also I totally see it, but at the same time, this shoe is so different and so out there. You've got to give Kanye props for trying something insane and different, and this is by far the most insane and the most different of all of his Yeezy sneakers, at least in my opinion. There were some other insane looking Yeezys that dropped this year, but none of them were as wearable as this shoe. I mean, this shoe you can actually wear and feel comfortable in. Some of them you could barely put on your feet because they were either too tight or too small or whatever the reason, but you gotta give him props for trying stuff that no one else is willing to try. And honestly, I feel like Kanye is one of the reasons that the footwear industry is moving as quickly forward as it is. I feel like if it wasn't for Kanye trying these crazy and unique designs, we'd still be stuck with pretty much just retros. And I guess that's not totally a bad thing, but it is nice to have something like this that is so new and so out there that it really gets me excited about the future of footwear. And I've got to say, while I don't love the way that this sneaker feels on foot, it's so interesting and it's such a different kind of aesthetic that this had to be on the list. Coming in at number 5 is the Nike Paulx Air Max 1. In my opinion, this shoe is a perfect example of a collaboration being done right. What I love about this shoe is that Paulx didn't over-design this collaboration. I'm sure they went through a ton of different concepts and tried a bunch of different stuff, but what they landed on is so simple and so clean, and it separates itself just enough from a standard pair of Air Max 1s, but still looks unique and still looks out there, and I think they did a great job with this collaboration. In particular, this orange colorway, or the launch colorway of this collaboration, this shoe just pops. It's such a clean look. You've got this beautiful aged midsole. The tone of orange is bright, but it's not too bright. It's a little bit dulled down. You've got your mini Nike swoosh on the toe, which I absolutely love. I don't know why, but I love it. And of course, the eye-catching detail on this collaboration is the wave that runs along this panel on the bottom of the upper. I mean, from what I can tell, other than Paulx adding their branding on this sneaker, the only thing they really changed was this panel, and it makes such a huge difference. And it's really great to see a brand take an iconic silhouette like the Air Max 1 and have so much respect for this shoe and the history behind it that they didn't want to change too much. They didn't want to make it completely different or go crazy on the colorway. They wanted to change one little thing that really makes all the difference. And I genuinely think that the Paulx Air Max 1 is going to go down as one of the best Air Max collaborations of all time. I know that's crazy to say, but I mean, if you look at this shoe, you get it. Like, this shoe is awesome. Next up at number 4 are the Salehe Bembury Paulx Crocs. So if you had told me last year that I would have been putting a pair of Crocs not only on the top 10 list of the year, but also this high on the list, I would have said you're crazy. I would have said that you are absolutely insane and that I should not be reviewing sneakers. But I'm doing it, and I'm still reviewing sneakers. So it's just a testament to how good of a shoe this actually is. So this is a shoe that I just recently reviewed, and I found out when I was doing research for the review that the Salehe Bembury Paulx Crocs are one of the most searched shoes of 2021. I mean, they beat out the Trophy Room Air Jordan 1s. They beat out, I think the 350 Lights and some other pairs of 350s. Like, this shoe is one of the most searched shoes of the entire year, and that's crazy. And I think that's because Salehe Bembury did such a great job of creating a shoe that's so different and so insane and so out there that people are just interested to see how it looks on foot or just how this shoe is made. And when you pair this with this shoe being worn by people like LeBron James, I mean, the impact that this pair of Crocs has had on sneaker culture this year is crazy. I know I've said crazy and insane like a million times throughout this video, and probably most of those times in this particular section of the video, but there's a reason for that. These shoes are all insane, and this one might be the most insane out of all of them. What I love most about this shoe is that Salehe Bembury essentially signed this sneaker with his fingerprint on the outsole of the shoe, and the fact that that fingerprint actually wraps up and creates the texture on the upper of the shoe is just so much cooler. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I think the direction of footwear is going more in towards the sort of ease of use, Croc style, foam, runner style sneakers, and I think this is just a perfect example of why the direction of footwear is going that way, because designers like Salehe Bembury are taking things like Crocs, which are traditionally not hyped at all, and turning them into something that people really want. And I think it's a brilliant marketing move by Crocs, because once people wear a pair of Crocs and understand how comfortable they actually are, they're going to want to keep wearing them. And it was really just a barrier to entry for them because no one wanted to buy Crocs, at least not sneakerheads, because they weren't cool. But then you get a designer like Salehe to make a pair of Crocs cool, and then you got a Crocs wearer for life, like I am now, which is kind of nuts to say, but it's true. So this shoe is not only a win for Salehe because he designed an incredible shoe, but also to win for Crocs because now they have a bunch more people interested in their brand. Now, unfortunately, it was very difficult to grab a pair of these on release. There was apparently not that many pairs made, but it does look like there will be more releases of this shoe in the future in multiple colorways, so hopefully we have more chances to grab a pair of these if you weren't able to grab them when they dropped. Coming in at number 3 is the Off-White Nike Dunk Low, the 50 collection. So I've talked about this collection a lot already. In fact, I talked about it most recently in my top 10 collaborations of 2021 video. And so because of that, I'm not gonna talk too much about the actual sneakers themselves, but I will talk about the reason that this shoe is so high on the list. And that reason is the concept of this release. The fact that Virgil Abloh released 50 almost identical looking shoes, they all sold out, now you have people collecting 50 pairs of the same shoe, is mind-blowing to me. And while yes, lot 1 and lot 50 were different, lot 1 was white and lot 50 was black, and of course they were more limited, lot 2 through 49 were all gray and white. But I've got to say, the quality of each one of these shoes was impressive, and the subtle differences that separated each one of these lots from each other, like the material changes and the changes in color of the laces and the tags and things like that, did make this collection a lot more interesting than I initially thought. But what I love most about this drop is that when you bought a pair of these, you didn't know which lot you were gonna get. You had no idea if you were gonna get lot 1, lot 50, or any of the numbers in between. And because they did the release this way, in this sort of Pokemon card pack style of a release, it made this so much more interesting and so much more exciting. And even if you didn't like the shoe, you were excited to find out which lot you got. And if you got one of the rares, it was worth so much more, and people wanted that pair so much more. Everything about this release was so well orchestrated that while I didn't understand what was going on when the release was happening, looking back on it now, it just proves that Virgil genuinely was ahead of his time. This style of release was so crazy and so different that I think it's going to be copied in the future. I wouldn't be surprised if sneaker brands pop up. This is their whole brand strategy. It's just such a crazy concept, and it really transcends above the footwear itself and makes it more of an experience than an actual shoe. And I think Virgil was brilliant at that. I mean, obviously with the Air Jordan 2s, that was more of an art piece than something that you wear. And with the Off-White Nike Dunks, it was him doing something that no one's ever done before in footwear, and I absolutely love it. Then at number 2, we've got the Fragment Travis Scott Air Jordan 1 Lows. So I know it kind of seems like a hypebeast move to put this shoe at number 2 on the list, but there are a few reasons why I did that. The first is that I think this is by far the best triple collaboration of the entire year, and 2021 seemed to be the year of triple collaborations. The second is that I really wanted this shoe, and this was my most wanted pair of Air Jordan 1s the whole year, so I'm very excited to have this shoe. And the third reason is because this was the most accessible pair of Travis Scott Air Jordan 1s that I think we've ever had, and the best pair in my opinion. I think this pair is better than any of the other Travis Scotts. I have the Travis Scott 1s somewhere, not the new ones, but the older ones, and I actually think this pair is even better than those. So for me, the thing that drew me most to this shoe was the similarity of this colorway to the original Fragment Air Jordan 1s. That was a grail of mine that I still have not been able to grab, and I probably will never be able to grab, so having this pair is kind of a nice consolation prize. And while I don't like Air Jordan 1 Lows as much as the highs are my favorite sneaker of all time, this colorway is so much better than the Travis Scott Fragment highs that dropped earlier this year. And yes, I understand that that colorway is based off an unreleased sample of the OG Air Jordan 1s. I understand the history, but you gotta just look at the shoe and you see that design-wise, it's more complete, it's more finished, it's more, I don't know, it just comes together better. And while this isn't the most subtle collaboration ever, I think Fragment and Travis did a great job of working together and creating a shoe that looks amazing and still features all the little Fragment and Travis hits that you want without like hitting you in the face with them. Plus, I own a sock brand called Apothecary, which I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about a million times in the past, and low-top sneakers are by far the best shoes to take promo pictures of your socks in, and we've got a really great, huge announcement coming up next year, so this shoe will be definitely in a lot of those promo pictures, and that's probably another reason why I love these shoes so much. So there's a lot of reasons to love this shoe. I think it's the best triple collaboration of the year, and that's why it's number 2 on the list. Finally, coming in at number 1, we've got the A Ma Maniére Air Jordan 3s. So I'm sure this is no surprise to anybody. This shoe has been called Sneaker of the Year since it released in the middle of the year, and I totally agree with the hype. I think this is one of the best Air Jordan 3 collaborations of all time. I think it's one of the best Air Jordan colorways of all time, Air Jordan 3 or otherwise, and I think A Ma Maniére absolutely not only solidified themselves on the map of the biggest sneaker boutiques in the world, but also created one of the best Air Jordan collaborations of all time. I said it. There you go. This shoe is the prime example of a sneaker collaboration done perfectly. Everything about this shoe is amazing. The concept behind this shoe is great. The official name of this collaboration is Raised by Women, and that's because James Whitner, the founder of A Ma Maniére, was inspired by his mother to create this collaboration, or create the material used and the colors used on this collaboration. Speaking of the materials used, the suede that has replaced the elephant print on the shoe looks amazing. The colors that were used, the aged midsole mixed with this sort of like I guess it's almost like a mauve, purplish color on on the back of the midsole. You've got the aged hits around the eyelets. You've got more suede. You've got the white tumbled leather. You've even got a quilted sock liner, which just adds to the premium feel of this shoe. This shoe feels like a luxury Air Jordan 3. I love the colorway. I love the color blocking. The fact that this shoe is also just a women's exclusive and is still the sneaker of the year just goes to show how strong of a colorway this actually is. In my opinion, everything about this shoe is executed perfectly, and that's why this shoe is #1 on the list, and in my opinion, the best sneaker release of 2021. But that pretty much wraps up my list of the top 10 sneaker releases of 2021. Once again, if you guys have any thoughts on my list and you feel like maybe I left out some shoes, or maybe you felt like some shoes were out of order, make sure to let me know in the comment section down below. And again, if you want to grab any of the shoes on this list, I've left an affiliate link to GOAT in the description below. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet. Happy New Year, and I'll see you all in the next one.